dieting, because in fact, some of you were dieting all through the Ramadan because you were busy pursuing the path of the monafik right there whilst you were fasting. You were fasting, you were busy recalling Natasha with lies. You were fasting. Each and every one of the person involved, some of you would even say you are Muslims, some would say you are Christians, but every one of you, and you sat there. What did you do when you were done being part of that evil? Something made this normal. The rulers had failed in their primary duty to protect the people. They failed in protecting the people, and the people returned to the original state of nature where life is short, nasty, and brutish. The state failed. Before those people got to the point where they became so fearful of a northern person in their terrain, how many Fulani marauders have they had to cope with when the state had turned the blind eye? What did the state do?
Hello, wonderful followers and subscribers of Holy Ghost Son. I hope this video finds you well. Guys, please, I want you to settle down and hear the revelation that Dele Farotimi revealed in this video. In fact, listening to him, I was dumbfounded. He revealed how, our rulers profit from this insecurity that is going on. He touched on the Edo State, what transpired recently between the people that were, terminated. He said, now everybody is angry, the government is angry. Firstly, what has the government done? What have they done to help the Edo people when they were crying that kidnappers were troubling them, disturbing them, right? Ravaging the country, especially in the era of Buhari. What did they do? Now citizens are beginning to take our laws into their hands. Now they are reacting. That's number one. Number two, thing that I review. He went further to say, Pablo Escobar, right? The way he's going to fulfill his third term, he will just send one of the cabinet members, just go, His Royal Majesty, want to contest for the go for a third time. They will pass it with ease, the way they've been doing all that thing. And he concluded by saying, we all must come to the understanding now that we are now in a full-blown dictatorship regime masquerading as democracy. Guys, I think this is the best video you got to share. You've got to share this video, let the world see it. It is loaded, it is educating. Watch to the end, and please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and please share. In case today is your first time coming across my video, I want to welcome you especially to the platform that tell you undiluted truth. God bless you.
Of criminals? How? Let me remind you. The executive, your governors, your local government chairmen, before you start talking about your presidents, they profit from the insecurity. If they don't profit from it, if they are not criminals profiting from it, why are they driving bulletproof cars when you are left to the mercies of the elements? If they were not driving bulletproof cars, would they not address the subject of insecurity? The roads are bad, but they are driving SUVs. They even insult us by appropriating money to buy SUVs for themselves. They insult us and tell us that it's because the roads are bad. Who are the real criminals? Who? They don't build hospitals because their own doctors are abroad. And why would they build any hospitals when they don't care about me and you? And we're still talking about criminals in prison? Who are the original criminals, if not those who deny you, deliberately deny you good life? And yes, the ones that ask you to pray for them, are they not complicit in this evil? And are they different from the criminals who perpetrate the evil that leads to the insecurity that they cure by buying bulletproof cars and arming themselves with soldiers and all kind of military personnel and policemen to protect themselves and their cronies. Whilst me and you have to keep living by faith. How? Education? I'm gonna remind you, I warrant that you will not find Nigerian rulers' children in any of our tertiary institutions in any significant number, especially the government-owned ones. The children are abroad or in private universities when they want to pretend that they live as commoners as well, so that they can say, oh, their children are in schools in Nigeria. They don't put their children in systems that they run. How? Nigeria once had the record of being the 6th largest producer of crude in the entire world. Number 1 in Africa. This country has more hydrocarbon than it has crude, but it flares and wastes it when it should harness it and build local industry. And you tell me those who have superintended that system for over 50 years are not criminals? How? This country had 4 refineries, government-owned refineries, when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s. And today, without anybody being in prison or being convicted, 4 refineries were killed. And we continue to vote. I say we, no, God forbid, I'm not responsible. Some people continue to vote monies every year, appropriate money for these 4 refineries that you've already killed. And then they are doing all kind of photo op, saying the Port Harcourt refinery was working. Come on. And these are not criminals. And the people responsible are not in prison. Nobody is in prison for ruining 4 refineries. 4. The only one that works in Nigeria, a privately owned one, cannot buy crude in Naira. What kind of people are ruining our country? What is going on? And we're still talking about criminals in prison? What about all these criminals that are living in plain sight? How? We're importing food. How? Look, before the white man ever darkened these shores, for you to be a man in this part of the world, by the time you are said to be a man, you would have conquered hunger. You would have a roof over your head. You would have learned one skill or the other, but you would have a self-sustaining life. But today, we have evolved a society where somebody went to university and became a truck pusher, and we don't have enough teachers. But they couldn't even find anything for this man to do but become a truck pusher after university, after NYSC. We are all criminals, but those who are meant to be ruling the society have become even more criminal than anyone else, because how else do you explain a society that has evolved in this manner? How? food is scarce in a country that has arable land. The people in Fulani who have been arrested, I'm hoping that they will go through a lawful process. But even when they might have been convicted for the murders of these persons, have we examined the original criminals in that situation? What created a state of affair where the people lived in so much fear of their fellow human beings and have evolved a process of demonization that the Fulani person or the northern person who was bearing any form of arms, be they licensed or not, are fit for killing? Something evolved that society. Something made this normal. The rulers had failed in their primary duty to protect the people. They failed in protecting the people, and the people returned to the original state of nature where life is short, nasty, and brutish. The state failed. Before those people got to the point where they became so fearful of a northern person in their terrain, how many Fulani marauders have they had to cope with when the state had turned the blind eye? What did the state do to help explain that it is not every person of northern origin that should be considered a threat? What did the state do? And when I'm talking state, I'm not just talking about government. I'm talking about the traditional rulers. I'm not talking about the state government alone. What about the federal government that controls all the security apparatus? What did it ever do? And I'm not talking about Bulaba alone, especially during the Buhari years, when impunity of all manners were tolerated by the Fulani marauders. And these were not even Nigerian Fulanis. These were largely imported ones, brought in because of politics. And you're asking who the original criminals are. The original criminals are in your corridors of powers, and the persons in prisons are largely victims of their criminality. That is the point I am making to you. And the situation is even now worse when you get into the prison and you see the way the prisoners are treated. You know at that point that the state itself is the criminal. Any entity that would keep human beings in the conditions that Nigerians are kept in what they call prisons, and in fact, they lie and call them, what's that nonsense? Please, correctional. It corrects nothing. There is nothing to correct. Even the officers themselves are not different from the victims they are meant to watch over, because the officers are themselves victims of the system. How do you correct somebody you can't even feed to keep alive? And you're asking who the original criminals are? Original criminals? The original criminals are staring right back at you in the mirror because you've tolerated this evil. The original criminals are staring right back at you. Every time you look in the mirror, you're seeing the criminals. But the biggest criminals of all, they're the ones sat in judgment. They're the ones sat in the government house. They're the ones meant to enforce the laws. They are the original criminals. We have evolved a society that functions on the back of abnormalities. Original criminals. I was speaking to the Nwosu thing a little earlier on, and I will use that to round it up. Here is the thing. You saw them refusing to recognize Humphrey Nwosu, and a lot of you fell for the error of thinking it was about ethnicity. It has nothing to do with ethnicity. If it was about ethnicity, state governments in the southeast could have set the ball rolling by immortalizing him. Anambra could set the ball rolling. They could name their electoral commission building. Start with that. But it's not about ethnicity. It's never been about ethnicity. If it were about ethnicity, Abiola would have been immortalized in the time of Obasanjo. But they must never give you positive role models. If they told you that this man is being immortalized because of option A4, which he enforced, if not evolved, but at least he was the one who had the job of administering this option A4. And until date, I am going to be 57. That is the freest and fairest election I have seen in my entire life. And that wasn't the first election that I would see, but it was the first in which I voted. I have not seen another election anywhere near as credible. How do you then expect these products of fraud and fraudulence, whether that be of the judicial process or be that of the electoral system? How do you expect them to hold up a man who symbolizes free and fair elections? How? They can never do that. So when you fall for the bait of ethnicity and you start thinking it's about ethnicity, you are just as foolish as they believe you to be. It is easy to lose sight of the fact. Obasanjo is not only a Yoruba man, he's from the same town as Abiola. He resisted ever allowing them to recognize June 12th. I know as a fact, and you can ask people by generation, when Abacha was going to take over in November 1993, at least 100 people were killed on Ikorodu Road alone, and they remain buried in unmarked graves till today. Obasanjo took power just 6 years later. 6 years later, in spite of his complicity in the June 12th debacle, he couldn't find the grace. He could never find the grace to immortalize the victims because they could not afford to allow the people to understand the powers that they have. In immortalizing Abiola, it would have been deifying the power of the people's vote. How could he do that when he was preparing for a tsunami of 2003? It would have been rank hypocrisy. So he couldn't do it, and he didn't do it. And for years, it was resisted. It took a dictator, a lawbreaker, a killer of democracy like Buhari to come and play the politics of immortalizing Abiola, because by then they had established this reign of madness that has overtaken all of us. Let us be clear. The real criminals are closer to home. It's me and you, and it is our rulers. We are the original criminals. We tolerated these. That's why we've become acculturated to it. We tolerated it, we mollycoddled it, we explained it. They are sat in churches where they are lying to you as I speak to you right now. And in spite of the fact that you have been busy fasting yourselves, you are dieting, most of you. You are dieting because, in fact, some of you, you were dieting all through the Ramadan because you were busy pursuing the path of the monafik right there whilst you were fasting. You were fasting, you were busy recalling Natasha with lies. You were fasting. Each and every one of the person involved, some of you would even say you are Muslims, some would say you are Christians, but of every one of you, and you sat there. What did you do when you were done being part of that if? You washed your hands. You helped normalize it. Oh, it's just politics. It's just politics. You are not from Kogi. You are not from Kogi. But you normalize the evil in Kogi. You found a reason to normalize it. Ethnicity, politics, religion, and you were busy. Fasting. You were dieting, motherfucker. Anyways, I think enough said. When we are good and ready, we know what to do. Well, let me close my sermon this morning by reminding you of purpose. Because when purpose is unknown, abuse becomes inevitable. I had an interview, I gave an interview to News Now like a couple of weeks ago now. I think that it was aired last Monday. And in that interview, I said amongst many other things that I warrant that if Tinubu gave the National Assembly, if he sent a bill, it might not even be the one to send, it might be a member's bill that will go before the National Assembly, and he will tell the National Assembly that His Excellency, Imperial Majesty desires a third, fourth, or fifth time. And I said it will be granted. And then I heard the Ebora of Owu pretty much echoing the same thing later in the week, this last week. And I laughed inside of me because there was something else I said to you lot that you probably didn't pay attention to. And I must have said that, I think, around September. I said, pay attention to Fagbemi, your Attorney General. I assure you, you hear me? I assure you, full-blown dictatorship is upon us. I don't know for how much longer the likes of me will be tolerated before they will find a way, one way or the other, whether using the same criminal system as they have done before, or maybe this time around they will find more ingenious ways. I don't know how long they will tolerate the likes of me, but I assure you, we're already in a full-blown dictatorship. It masquerades as a democracy, but it is not. This is a criminal empire now, full-blown one. For some of us, we have resolved. Don't go nowhere. You hear me? But be prepared. Don't be fooled. If we are going to come out of this, it will be because we resolved as a people that enough is enough. There must be a point where the elasticity breaks. Because these people, we've been talking about electoral reform, and I'll continue to speak about it. And we have actually now more or less rounded up our work on the draft bill. But it's getting to the point where I actually begin to doubt, verily doubt, if we'll be able to get any concessions out of this system to the electoral pass. But that's another story for another day. Let me seize this opportunity to invite each and every one of you, as many of you as are in the Lagos